This weekend, Barbieheimer exploded into theaters. It blew away all the projections, and it gave an opportunity for people like me to make a bunch of explosion puns. So let's talk about it. If you've been living in a cave the last week, you might have missed the cultural phenomenon known as Barbieheimer or Barbenheimer. That is the strange anomaly where Universal and Warner Brothers decided to release Barbie and Oppenheimer on the exact same day, and the internet found it hilarious that this movie about the creation of the atomic bomb would be released on the same day as this silly summer Barbie movie based off of a toy, and they decided to merge the two together, and it turned out great for movie theaters as well as both movies. This thing took over the culture so much so that a Mission Impossible movie came out just a week ago. That was the movie everyone was talking about until Barbieheimer hit, and we completely forgot Tom Cruise rode a motorcycle off of a cliff for us because of Barbieheimer. Real quick before I break down all the records that were broken as well as my thoughts on why Barbenheimer was such a big deal, be sure to join me down below in the comments section. Let me know, why do you think these movies did so well this weekend? And do you call it Barbieheimer or Barbenheimer? Very important question. Also, if you like these sort of box office videos where I break down the numbers, over on my Patreon channel, I do a weekly box office roundup show where I go through the numbers, give my insights. So if you like this type of content, consider joining over on Patreon at any level, and you gain access to that live stream as well as the weekly Ask Me Anything where I answer everybody's questions. Let's get back to Barbenheimer. So just to give you a point of reference on all of this, back 3 weeks ago, June 29th, depending on which website you look at, the projections for the opening of Barbie were somewhere between 70 million and 100 million, which is those are great numbers for a brand new adaptation of an IP budget in the mid 150s. If you're making 70 to 100 million opening weekend, can't complain too much about that. And then projections for Oppenheimer is that it was going to make somewhere from 30 to 50 million, which feels soft for a Nolan film. Most of them saying it was eyeing about a 40 million opening weekend. Budget's only 100 million, so 40 million opening weekend on a budget of 100 million. That's not a bad domestic opening weekend, but Nolan's kind of a brand, so you kind of think he's going to do gigantic numbers and really make a splash, and 40 million doesn't feel like a gigantic splash. And then Barbieheimer happened. And when they put two movies out on the same day that appealed to two different audiences, it's supposed to be counter-programming. Serious 3-hour R-rated drama, probably playing to an older audience that's into history, and then they put out a movie that's about an adaptation of a children's toy, the silly vibe to it. In the case of this movie, it has a lot of social commentary about gender roles in today. Those play to different audiences, or they're supposed to. That's what the discussion was. Okay, these are probably hitting different people. But because they're so different and so odd, but there actually was this kind of cross-section of people that are into movies are fascinated by both of these projects. So there ended up being kind of this weird overlap that turned into, are you doing the Barbieheimer double feature? And sparked this wave of momentum for both of them to where instead of it being counter-programming, well, let's put two movies out that don't appeal to the same audience, it turned synergistic, and it hyped both of them up to dramatic levels that made absolutely no sense. So the numbers are still coming in for this past weekend, but as of right now, which is Monday morning, pulling numbers from late Sunday night, Barbie is looking to open at $162 million, doubling essentially the main projection. The number that people really thought it was going to get, about 80 million, 100 million would be high, 70 million low, 80 million is probably accurate. 162 million. It doubled the projections. Oppenheimer Projections, 30 to 50 million. Everyone really think 40 million was the best guess. It got 82 million, doubling the projections. With both movies, the projections got it wrong by a factor of 100%. Both movies doubled their projections, making for the fourth biggest weekend in box office history. Fourth biggest weekend. The three box office weekends that are better than this weekend that we just had were the release of The Force Awakens, the release of Infinity War, and the release of Endgame. Those are the only three with bigger weekends at the box office, all movies combined, than this weekend. All of that fueled by Barbieheimer. So even Spider-Man No Way Home, which opened gigantic, but kind of everything else was dead on arrival. That was all out. People only went to go see that one movie. Even that didn't have fuel as big of a weekend as this weekend with Barbieheimer that just propelled this weekend to the fourth best domestic box office weekend in history. That's crazy. Naturally, because of that means it was the best weekend at the box office since Endgame came out. Both of these movies had a bunch of very specific records or important notes about them. Barbie, biggest opening weekend of the year. It defeated Super Mario Brothers. It'll likely end up being the biggest opening weekend of the year. Biggest opening weekend ever for a movie directed by a woman. It's the largest weekend ever for a movie based off of a toy having a better opening weekend than any of the Transformers movies. Then you kind of move along to Oppenheimer, biggest opening weekend for an R-rated movie since Joker came out 4 years ago. I read one place that said this is the biggest opening weekend for a movie that didn't open at number one, which that's why this weekend is so bonkers bananas and the numbers are so high. Oppenheimer didn't open at number one, but it's the highest amount of money that a movie has ever gotten and not been able to hit number one. It's the third biggest opening ever for a Christopher Nolan movie behind The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. So all of those other great movies that he did that opened fantastic, this had a better opening weekend than those movies. And it's rated R, which is bonkers. It's bananas. And it's the biggest global day and opening weekend for a biopic ever. So there's like all of these different layers to how both movies did way better than they made any sense to do. And something about that synergy, the hype, the excitement got people to go out to the theaters. You think locking in on Oppenheimer a little bit? Like I put out a tweet where it's his third biggest opening behind only two Batman movies. Two, like one of them, most celebrated and praised comic book movie of all time, probably. And then the other one, the sequel to it. Those are only his two movies that opened better than this. And you think about it, it's a 3-hour movie, but it's a drama. It's not like, Endgame is 3 hours, but it's 3 hours of comic book action and comedy. This is a 3-hour talky drama, and it opened huge. It's rated R, which immediately you can't sell as many tickets. You just don't have opening weekends that are gigantic like this nearly as often for R-rated movies. That's why so many movies are PG-13 these days, because they sell more tickets. And an R-rated movie that's 3 hours of people talking to each other is the highest grossing movie for a movie that didn't open at number one. That's wild and crazy. And it's really depressing subject matter about the atomic bomb and how in danger we are today because of the creation of this technology. Definitely not the feel-good hit of the summer, but it did fantastic. And then, of course, with Barbie, that was kind of that was one that was probably always going to do really well because it's the first adaptation, star-studded cast. It feels like a summer movie of just bright colors, pop music, pop culture references. It feels like a summer movie that people get excited about. But you're not expecting it to have a global opening of over $300 million. You're not expecting it to have the biggest opening weekend of the year necessarily. And so the question is, what on earth happened here? Why did these movies so overperform? Especially in a summer where so many movies are underperforming. In a crowded summer. So over the last couple of days, I've been talking with people like, Mission Impossible, I guess it should have opened at a different time because, it's just too busy and Mission Impossible got drowned out in the middle of all of it. But these two movies opened on the same day, 1 week after Mission Impossible. They didn't get lost in the crowd. They didn't get drowned out. It's just as crowded of a marketplace for them. But they did fantastic. And 1 week ago, Mission Impossible opened a little bit soft, and then its bottom fell out. It had a huge second weekend drop because of Barbieheimer. A month ago, Flash, way underperformed. Elemental, very poor opening weekend. Right after, Transformers, it was a crowded marketplace, and they underperformed. Barbieheimer overperformed. So what on earth is going on here in the summer where so many movies are underperforming? From big franchises, even some of them with great reviews. Why did Barbenheimer so overperform? And I think some of it boils down to people want a memory. They want something worth going to the theater for. And it feels like people just don't want to go just for a movie, even if it might be a good movie. They're just not as excited to just go out to the theater with ticket prices as expensive as they are. Popcorn is expensive as it is. So many movies kind of being mediocre. So many movies kind of feeling similar to other movies. And it's just, we've done that before. And you can only see so many movies. So what do you want to go see? Another movie in a franchise that you've seen before where you kind of know what to expect? Or do you want to be a part of this weird cultural phenomena, Barbenheimer? Do you want to go to the theater with a bunch of people dressed in pink and be a part of that water cooler movie that everyone's talking about right now as I'm filming this Monday morning? Everyone's talking, oh, did you go see Oppenheimer or did you go see Barbie? Oh, did you go see both of them? Hey, what did you think about Barbie? Like, I was expecting a fun movie and then had a lot of social commentary. I kind of love that. Or, yeah, I know I took my daughter and it went way over her head. I wasn't crazy about it. It's a movie people are talking about. You want to be a part of that conversation. Point of reference, a week ago when I was deciding to go to the press screening for Barbie, my wife wasn't really interested at all. I decided to take my 9-year-old daughter just because I wanted to, I thought the movie would spark conversations and she'd be a good test subject to see, can a 9-year-old understand the film? But my wife wasn't interested in watching it. And then by yesterday morning, my wife was like, I think I want to go see Barbie tonight. I just want to see what it's about and join the conversation. So last night, once it was the kids' bedtime, she went to go see it at 9:30 at night, came home and we talked about it at midnight. It was one of those movies that you just felt like you wanted to be a part of the conversation. And that wasn't really the case with a lot of these other films. They just didn't spark that excitement in the fashion that people wanted. Like, there's a lot of talk about The Flash, but it was all kind of negative buzz. It was the VFX suck. Ezra Miller's a monster. And these movies it just feels like you're a part of something fun. Like, somehow we turned going to Oppenheimer into a fun event. Oppenheimer! Atomic bomb! World War II! Cold War! Senate hearings! And they made it kind of this fun event that you got to be a part of something. It wasn't just that both movies got great reviews, which they did. It wasn't just that both movies had great word of mouth, which they did. A cinema scores for both films. It's that you were a part of something, part of this movement that was exciting and a cultural event that has a Wikipedia page. And I think it was that whole other thing that it's not just a movie, it was an event weekend. The same way that No Way Home was an event weekend. You didn't want to miss the event. You wanted to be a part of it. And that's what, over the last 3 weeks, one month ago, these movies were projected for very modest, mediocre weekends that were good compared to their budget, but nothing to talk about. And it turned into record-breaking weekends for both movies and the fourth best weekend ever, best weekend in the COVID era or post-COVID era, depending on how you define it. All of that happened because it turned into an event, a movement that people wanted to be a part of. And that's exciting. I've been critical of Barbie, but this is great for movie theaters. I'm pro movies. I'm pro people loving going to the movies, having a great time at the movies. And if they had that with Barbie, that's awesome. That's what I want. That's what I'm all about. So great weekend, a fantastic weekend at the movies that kind of came out of nowhere. If you were trying to guess at the beginning of the summer, which movies are going to have the big, gigantic opening weekends, which ones are going to set the records, I'm saying Flash, I'm saying Mission Impossible, maybe Indiana Jones. Like, I'm talking about Pixar. I'm not talking about Oppenheimer and Barbie. But something magic happened, lightning in a bottle, and you can just imagine all of the studios right now trying to figure out how to manufacture the next Barbenheimer and not realizing sometimes these things just happen. It was the strange coincidence of their release on the same day that was just perfectly amusing to the internet that made for a fantastic event that was beneficial for both of them and beneficial for us. Win, win, win. Everybody won out of this. You can't manufacture that, but I'm sure a bunch of people in meeting rooms right now are trying to figure out how to do it. Anyway, that's my take on it. Join me down below in the comment section. What do you make of Barbenheimer or Barbieheimer? More importantly, for you, is it Barbieheimer or Barbenheimer? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.